Hi, welcome again to the Signer Kitchen. This evening we're going to be making Italian country meatballs. It's a multiple step process, but I'll take you through it and it's not too hard. All right, first we need to go over our ingredients. So over here we have 4 eggs beaten. We have a cup of ricotta cheese, and this is 1/3 of a cup of whole milk. On the table we have 6.6 ounces of breadcrumbs. We have another 1/3 cup of milk. This is whole milk. We have 1 pound of Italian sausage, 1 pound of ground beef, 1 pound of ground pork. This is 3 ounces of prosciutto that's been diced. This is approximately 6.6 ounces of chopped parsley. This is 1 1/3 tablespoons of salt. And then we have 2 2/3 teaspoons of dried oregano, 2 teaspoons of fennel seed, and 1 1/3 teaspoon of dried chili flakes. You'll see that we also have a pan on the table with some olive oil that we'll be using in a minute. After we make the meatballs, we have a bowl that we'll be using to combine our ingredients, as well as a scoop. This is a 1/4 a cup measure, which approximates the size of a number 16 scoop, so that's what we'll be using to make our meatballs. I also have a pair of gloves here that I'll be using once we start combining the ingredients. Okay, so the first step in the process is to take our whole milk and put it in the breadcrumbs. Okay, I've added a fork here just to kind of stir it up a little bit. We want the breadcrumbs to absorb the liquid from the milk, so they're not quite so dry. Okay, so we're going to let that sit in just a minute. I'm just breaking it up with the fork to kind of make it more evenly distributed. I think of this like when you're making a graham cracker crust and you're mixing in the butter. That type of consistency is what we're looking for here. So we don't want too many super dry patches. So we're trying to sort of mix it all together, and then we'll let it set for a minute or two while we proceed on. Okay, I think I've gotten most of the large clumps broken up. Now, just as an aside, the breadcrumbs, the meatballs are a binding agent. They help hold the meatballs together. They're not really there to add flavor per se, but it is important to have them in there to kind of hold and bind all the ingredients together. All right, so we're going to let that sit for a minute. While that's sitting, we're going to go ahead over here and pull together our wet ingredients that we'll need in just a minute. So these are our 4 eggs that have already been beaten. Okay, just making sure that gets in there. This is 8 ounces of ricotta cheese. Okay, and we have about 1/3 of a cup of milk. Okay, all right. Now we're going to whisk this together, trying to break up the ricotta so that it's not super clumpy and everything is evenly distributed. All right, that looks pretty good. Okay, we'll be using that in a minute. All right, now we're going to mix our meat ingredients together. Okay, so first, this is the ground beef. I'm just going to drop it in there. Oh, I forgot. I had washed my hands at the beginning of this, right before we started recording. So I'm going to put my gloves on, because I'll be needing these in just a minute to put my hands in the meat and mix everything together. All right, so there we go. All right. our Italian sausage. Okay. And I've got our ground pork. And we've got our prosciutto. Goodness. Hopefully our bowl is going to be big enough here. Alright, I'm just going to go ahead and mix some of the meat together. Okay. Alright. Just trying to get it evenly distributed, and the mixing is causing my gloves to come off, but it's all right. Indicates that I probably need a slightly smaller size glove. Shall power through. Okay. All right, we're going to add our parsley. Salt. Dried oregano. Fennel. Pepper flakes. Okay, I'm going to mix those in and then I'll go back and add the breadcrumbs in. Just kind of doing this in portions to get everything evenly mixed. This is very similar to making hamburgers or any other kind of patty. It also has a lot of ingredients similar to what you might use to make a sausage if you were ever making homemade sausage. Turning, squishing them through your fingers. You see parts that have not been fully mixed. Just keep kneading. And the green parsley is a good indicator because you can see it more easily than you can see the spices. You can try to tell whether or not it's been evenly distributed. Okay. All right, I think that's pretty good. Another pull of the gloves. All right, now we're going to add the breadcrumbs in that we mixed with our milk. As I mentioned before, this is a binding agent. Could benefit from a slightly larger bowl here, but just continuing it to knead the breadcrumbs into the meat. Sort of like kneading a dough. Incorporating the drier breadcrumbs into the moister meat to help it bind together. When it cooks, the fat from the meat will start to melt, and the breadcrumbs will absorb some of that fat. And so they'll keep some of the flavor, which is another benefit. Now, almost there. See a couple of dry sections. Just about got it. Literally turning my meat over to check the bottom to make sure everything on the bottom has been incorporated. I see some dry spots, so we're going to work those through. Alright, now we're going to add, make a spot in the middle here to make it a little easier, just like a little well. And we're going to come over here and grab our egg mixture and pour it, egg and ricotta, pour it right in the center there. Now, carefully mix this in. Add lots of good moisture, lots of good cheese flavor, and again, the egg is going to help bind everything together. Apologies. Again, the gloves are slipping. Just continuing to knead that meat together. Now, this recipe had a slightly different ratio of ingredients to begin with. It called for 12 ounces of pork and 12 ounces of beef and 12 ounces of sausage. But because they come in 1 pound packages and I didn't want to, have a bunch of leftover meat that might get wasted, I used a conversion factor to adjust the level of ingredients in the recipe so that I could use the full 1 pound of each of the ingredients. So again, that's probably why my cup overfloweth a little bit here. But, so what will happen is we'll be able to make a few more meatballs than the recipe would have originally called for. The conversion factor was approximately 1 1/3. So I just took each of the ingredients and multiplied them by that conversion factor so that I could come up with the appropriate ratio for the recipe. So, and these meatballs, once they've been prepared, if you had extra, you certainly could freeze them and use them for a future meal, so, which is what we'll likely do. So I thought just better to go ahead and convert everything so that I could use the full meat that was available to me and nothing would get wasted. So that's just a quick aside. We're quickly getting to the place that we need to get to. Almost. The next step in this process is to kind of do a little sampling of our mixture and make sure that we've spiced it well. Now, of course, you cannot eat raw meat and taste it to see if you think the spices are good. So we're going to take a little bit of this and we're going to put it in a saute pan, saute it up, cook it up really quickly, and then to have a little taste test. And if the taste test reveals that we need to adjust anything, like for example, let's say we didn't have quite enough salt in here, then we can just add a little bit more. And this is the right time to do that. Alright, looks like we're almost there. Getting a good level of incorporation from the top and the bottom. Has spilled over just a little bit onto my tablecloth, but that's fine. All right, it's looking good. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take approximately 1/4 cup here, be the equivalent of one of our meatball sizes. And I don't know if we need quite that much for sampling, so let's take about half a size there. We can cook faster. Alright, and I'm going to take off my gloves. Put these off to the side. And we're going to take this over to our saute pan. Okay, so, because I wasn't sure how long that would take, I have not preheated the saute pan yet. So it's going to take a minute. So we'll get it going to get the pan hot. But while it's doing that, take it out. We'll make a mini meatball. This is what we're going to be making. And we're going to put it in here. I'm going to actually divide it up into smaller bits because this is just a taste test. So just put that down. Actually, I'll hold it for a minute. You can see it's smoking a little bit. There must have been something sanitized the stove top, so there must have been a little bit of cleaner left there. Just turn the vent fan on. Put this back over. And while that's heating up, I'm going to wash my hands off just for a minute. Up. With our mini meatballs. This is non-stick, so I've got a wooden utensil here to kind of help. I'm going to turn these down just a little bit. Now this is pork, so we want to make sure it's cooked all the way through. Flatten that meatball out a little bit. Because again, we're just trying to get it done enough to test the flavors. This is not for anybody else, this is just for us. Make sure that we've got the spices right. flattening them out just to make sure so they'll cook a little faster. This is not what we're going to do with our meatballs. Our meatballs will cook in the oven for approximately 20 minutes. At that point, we'll take them out and we will add some pasta sauce, and then we will cover them and reduce the heat from 400 to 325 and allow them to braise for 40 to 50 minutes so that they get cooked all the way through. And we'll be taking you through that whole process. On that side, I'm trying to flip them with the spoon, which is not ideal. There we go. It's getting a little well done on one side. We'll turn the heat down. See if this little piece looks done all the way through, and it does. Take it over here to my plate. We'll let these others finish up. I'm just going to turn them off. Alright, so I have turned them off, and actually I'm going to remove them from the heat. Again, that was just for tasting purposes, so you can see it's done all the way through. So I'm going to taste it. I think the seasoning is good. Very tasty. Now we're going to make our meatballs. All right, back to the table. Okay, at this point, we've got some olive oil. This particular olive oil is almost gone, but it's going to be enough for our purposes today. Spread it over the pan here. And I like to use a paper towel to spread it so that it gets an even spread and not too much in one spot. Alright, that looks good. Okay, now we're going to start making our meatballs. So, recipe called for number 16 scoop, which I mentioned is roughly 1/4 cup. Now you've noticed that I have left my gloves behind because my gloves were a little large and they were impeding my progress. So we will do this the old-fashioned way. There's one meatball. We're going to make 10 of these for purposes of demonstration, so bear with me. Get my meatballs together. And you want to do your best to try to make them all approximately the same size. Why is that important? Because that way you can moderate the cooking temperature and they will all get done at about the same time. So if you have different size meatballs, the smaller ones are going to get done faster and they may overcook while you're waiting for the larger ones to get to the point where they've cooked all the way through. So it's important to try to make them all the same size as best you can. So this one looks a little smaller. We'll add some to it. All right, that's good. Let's get some more meat mixture here. All right. You can see I'm just rolling it in a ball, similar to what you would do with cookie dough. Trying to space them apart so they each have room to cook. That one's a little small. Let's add some to it. the same size, so we're good there. Now this is a little bit messy, but no messier than making hamburger patties or anything else. So just have to use good sanitation, wash your hands in between. Okay, that one a little bit bigger. Let's take some off. That's 9. I think I'm going to go ahead and make 12 just so we have the pan full. And then we'll pop them in the oven. The oven is preheated to 400 degrees. So. And as I mentioned, we'll be cooking them for approximately 20 minutes, checking them at the 10-minute mark to rotate them and make sure they're cooking evenly. Now, obviously, they will not have been cooked all the way through, but what we're trying to do is brown them evenly all the way around, so it sort of seals in the juices before we then braise them in the tomato sauce. Our last one for this tray. Okay, it's a good opportunity to kind of look over them and see the ones on this end look a little bit smaller. Add a little bit to them. Just to, seems like I got a little bit bigger as I went. Now, there's a fair amount of fat in these meatballs, so they are going to cook down and be smaller when we're done. Just sort of visually looking at them, trying to see. I'm all about the same size. That one's a little small. And then I think we'll be good. All right, we're ready to put them in the oven. Come over here to our oven. Slip them in. Again, 400 degrees preheated. All right, at this point we're going to pause our video and I will rejoin you in 20 minutes after our meatballs have browned. All right, see you then.